guys, I told you today that because we were running short of time and because of the technical issue that was entirely my fault, I had to rush through things. So I wanted to go through real quickly and make sure you had all the information that you needed for the discussion board post that is due next Tuesday. We went through 2 days ago, Tuesday, we went through and looked at the literary elements handout as well as the list of authors. So your literary sources that you had to choose from. When we were talking earlier today, I forgot that we went over that on Tuesday. So I remembered that later. That's not something that we now need to cover in the video. So that will save us a little bit of time. I do, though, want to go over the discussion board. So when you have an opportunity, go ahead and pull up the literary analysis module. We're going to go through the instructions for that discussion board. Okay, so if you have it and you can follow along with me, it says to choose a poem, short story, or play from the list. The source you choose from this list will be the focus of your literary analysis essay. Your post to this discussion is your pre-writing for the essay. You will get revision feedback to your post from me, and then you need to continue drafting your essay. So this is actually part of the literary analysis essay that you're going to be working on. You're going to just be able to use this as you continue to draft. The second point you will notice is highlighted in pink. It's bolded and the text is bigger than the rest of the text. Our department head at the time when this was written added that because I guess she's been really frustrated with people. So I apologize that it's so bright. But what it's talking about is it says do not use any secondary sources. And I said this a bunch in class. So I don't think I really need to beat you up with it other than to remind you that this is not a situation where you research either the playwright, the poets, or the authors, or the time that these things were written. The context is irrelevant in this analysis. So don't do that. Just, I want to hear what your interpretations are, not somebody else's. So make sure you do not use secondary sources. Number 3, analyze the literary techniques of the source using the analytical methods from the textbook. So you're going to use the method. Examples of literary techniques to analyze include a strand of religious symbolism, a repetition of a key term like freedom, an anomaly in the personas or the narrator's tone. Remember, this seems to be about X, but is really about Y that we talked about when we first learned about the method and on the visual analysis. You can use that really well, particularly when you're trying to analyze poetry that is not necessarily very clear cut or very concrete. There's a lot of abstract thought that goes into poetry. So that would be a really good method when you're doing analysis for poetry. And then there's a list of literary terms and techniques in the module, which we went over on Tuesday. If you need help deciding on which techniques to explore in your essay, email me. And then number 4, this is where you start getting into the discussion itself. Choose one point of analysis to explore, which should be the most interesting, significant, revealing, or strange point of analysis from your exploration of the text. So you are choosing the actual text you're going to use for your longer essay. You're going to read it, annotate it. You're going to break it down into its various parts using the literary elements that are on the handout. So you're going to look at characterization, irony, you're going to look at tone, diction, all of those different literary techniques and elements. And then once you've done that, you're going to use the method. Where do you see binaries? Where do you see repetition and strands? So when you have done that, choose one of those. It's going to end up being one of the paragraphs that you use for your essay, but you're going to then write your analysis of that point of that particular most interesting element. You will include direct quotes from the text. So, and remember where we went over today, how you cite poetry. And if it's not poetry and it's one of the short stories or the plays, you just use quotation marks like we talked about earlier. Okay. It will be, number 5 says, write and post a well-developed body paragraph about that point, at least 200 words of analysis, using the paragraph strategies and ending with a thought-provoking social, psychological, cultural, or literary implication. Tell why your analysis of the literary technique matters. What is the reflection that you get from it about the world around us? Is there a political statement? Is there a religious statement? What do we learn about the culture, maybe of what's happening in the poem or short story, or about our culture today, based on what you read in the text? There are many ways to analyze literature. If you need help coming up with unique ideas, email me. And then this body paragraph, as I said, can be included in your paper. So this is pre-writing for you. Number 6, in the topic, the first sentence of your paragraph, be specific about why the point of analysis is interesting or strange. And then, for example, in William Wordsworth's poem, The World is Too Much with Us, the strand of religious symbolism is strange because blank. So that's just an example of a topic sentence you could use. In this kind of body paragraph, you might explore how the author uses elements of diction, imagery, or narration to reveal the implications of the point of analysis. The goal is not to argue for a single right interpretation. As I pointed out to you many times as we've talked about the method in this kind of analysis, interpretation cannot be wrong. What can be wrong is your maybe misunderstanding of either the method or the literary term, but how you see something based on your life experiences, as long as you can back it up with evidence from the text, you're fine. You can't be wrong. So there's a lot of freedom in that, hopefully. But analyze why different interpretations make the author's descriptions interesting or strange. Always use line numbers for quotations from poems. So then there's an example paragraph, which I will not read because you can read that. And then underneath that is part of the discussion that we had earlier today about how to quote poetry, using the space/space between the lines. Remember to stay true to how the poet wrote the poetry and keep those line breaks as they are published. Don't change those. There's a reason they break the lines where they do. And then remember, for quotations of 4 or more lines of poetry or anything else, anytime there's more than 4 lines, 4 or more, then you put it as a block quote and you don't use quotation marks. So remember to do that as well. Then check to be sure your quote matches the original text exactly. That includes punctuation, capitalization, spelling. It should be identical. Notice that long quotations are indented, and I had already talked about that. The guidelines for that are all over the place, but there is information in your textbook about it, as well as Purdue OWL and millions of other places online to look at examples. And that should cover the discussion board. Remember that your homework for the rest of this time in the weekend is to choose the literary piece that you're going to analyze and begin to break it into its parts, figure out your literary elements, and then how those fall into the points of analysis from the method, and be prepared and begin to write your approximately 200 to 250 word paragraph about that element, because that will be due on Tuesday night at 11:59 p.m. or hopefully before that. If you have any questions at all about anything that we covered, or we went through it quickly in class today, so if there's anything that you weren't sure about, please send me an email. and I will get back to you just as soon as I can and hopefully answer any questions that you have. I appreciate your patience today while we worked through those technical issues, and you guys enjoy your weekend, and I look forward to seeing you next Tuesday. Take care. Bye.